So, as you know, I'm doing a video from Australia. Hi, Bob. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. And basically, yeah, so I thought I'd talk about Davos today. And hi, Paul. Good to see you again, Paul. Really appreciate it. Um, hi, Roger. Good to see you, Roger. And hi, Peter. How you going? Good to see you again, Peter. Hi, Anne. Good to see you too. Appreciate you coming. Hi, Dave from California. Good to see you again. Second day in a row. Um, so I thought I'd talk about Davos today. Um, there's been a lot happening there as well. I wasn't completely surprised that Trump pulled out from invading Greenland. I always thought that invading Greenland, although you know you never know with Trump if he means it or not. I always thought it was probably unlikely that that was going to happen. I think a lot of people, even in the Republican Party, were kind of saying, Trump, you're making us look like complete nutcases, even though they already do look like complete nutcases. I think Mark Carney's speech yesterday that came out, I think that really put a nail in the coffin, basically saying that European nations and Canada, they called his bluff and he folded fast. Yeah, exactly, Paul. You're exactly right. Yeah, people are starting to realize that Trump is an authoritarian, Trump is a dictator, and Trump is a really bad person. But he's not, he will fold. Hi George, good to see you. He will fold if you stand up to him, right? And he will actually hold, so I think what Mark Carney proved yesterday is that you can be super nice to Trump. You can be, you can appease him. You can try to work with him, but he's still going to treat you the same way um, as where are all the Epstein files, Greenland, or as President Dementia said, Iceland is just to take the focus off the Epstein. Yeah, exactly, Peter. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he says Iceland like two or three times, and then um, um, everyone around him basically comes out and says, no, 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 he never said that. He never actually said that. So this is like, this is almost like Orwellian thing where he actually says something on TV. Everyone hears him say Iceland two or three times, and then everyone around him pretends like, no, no, he never said that. Um, so, but I think we're, I think the wo- I think there are some positives to this, and I think some of the positives is that if Canada and Europe are starting to realize that you need to stand up to him, right? And if you don't stand up to him, he's just going to get whatever he wants. Now, he, I think Trump overplayed his hand here. I really do think he overplayed his hand, and he got found out. He really did get found out, and now he's trying to like spin it that he's doing that behind the scenes. He's got this really good deal with Greenland, and then when a reporter asked him, he said this was hilarious. Do you remember whenever somebody asks Trump about healthcare, he always says, "I have a concept of a plan," right? And now, in terms of Greenland, when he was asked by a reporter, he says, "Well, we have a concept of a deal." So there is no concept of a deal. The fact of the matter is, Greenland was already open to America having more bases, and Greenland had already said a long time ago that New York could have access to some of its minerals. But the fact of the matter is, Greenland has this like an extraordinary amount of ice. And so it would be extremely, extremely expensive to try to pull any minerals out. And they don't actually know all the minerals that are underneath there. So again, it's just Trump trying to spin it when he lost into an actual win for him. Now, the fact of the matter is if you go on Twitter or which is basically the home of MAGA, there all the influencers are spinning this as a big win for Trump, and that Trump was playing 5D chess, and that Trump never had any intention of invading Greenland. So this was a negotiating tactic and things like that. but here's the thing, right? Even if you agree that Trump was unlikely to invade Greenland, what he did was still really, really bad. Because the strongest nation on the planet, the most powerful country on the planet, threatening to invade Greenland, which has like 50,000 people or 60,000 people, they don't have a proper military. And Denmark is also a very small country with no military. That is not okay. That is not a negotiating tactic, right? That's not a negotiating tactic. That is a threat. That is blackmail, right? That is illegal to do that. Could you imagine if you owned a home and someone came up to you, Joe, can you please explain to me why we need to protect Greenland from the Russia, but it's okay if Russia invades? Exactly. Yeah. It's just crazy, Peter. Look, Peter, none of that makes any sense. None of that makes any sense about that. Also, you now have Trump, who's accepted Putin to be on this peace board for Gaza, the peace board, and so Putin is on the peace board, and but at the same time, Putin is bombing Ukraine, right? And at the same time, Trump used Russia as an excuse to invade Greenland because he's saying that Russia could take over Greenland. But at the same time, he feels comfortable with having Trump on the panel of the peace board. None of it makes any sense, right? When you realize, I think the whole thing about Greenland was about. So it's important to say this about Greenland. Trump didn't come up with the whole Greenland thing. Trump came up with invading Greenland or putting tariffs on European countries. But in the sense of America purchasing Greenland, that's been a fantasy of the Republican Party and also think tanks like the Heritage Foundation for a very long time. So this isn't something new. Trump just added the craziness to it. But the number one reason I think they want Greenland is because of this is ironic, right? Because a lot of people know that the ice is melting around Greenland, right? And that's because of climate change. So a lot of the ice, hi American Seeger, a lot of the ice is melting around Greenland. So that's going to do is going to open up new trade routes, and these trade routes could change like something a shipment that usually takes. Hi, good morning, Mary. So a shipment that could take like 40 days if it goes through the new trade routes through Greenland, could knock it down to 20 days. So for shipping routes, this is a really big thing, right? For people who want to, so I think that's the number. So if you look at all the conservative green think tanks, or if you go back to John Bolton, or if you go to even Mike Pence, who have been talking about this as well, not invading Greenland, but talking about why Greenland's so important, it's all got to do with the melting ice caps and new trade routes that are going to open up in that area. Now, there is a difference between now a lot of countries trade routes through countries like Greenland. The United States is better off owning that because otherwise it would have to negotiate prices for trade routes with Europe. NATO doesn't cover that sort of thing. Trade routes. It doesn't really cover that sort of thing. So that would still have to be negotiated independently of NATO. So that's why it's not about protecting NATO. It's about having access to trade routes. Also, as the ice melts over the years, the minerals and resources on Greenland will be easier to extract. At the moment, it's very hard to extract minerals because the ice is so thick, but because of climate change. So this is the craziness of Greenland. The number one reason why the Republican Party wants access to Greenland is because of climate change, yet this particular party thinks climate change is a hoax, right? So, but there are people in the Republican Party who do believe that the ice is melting because they have scientists telling them that the ice is melting. If you look at Greenland even 10 years ago, in the summer period now, there are areas that boats would never get through but can now get through for the first time ever. And obviously it's early stages, but they're thinking 5, 10, 15 years from now, that area could open up a lot more. So I do think this is more about trade routes than anything else. And again, this isn't just a Trump thing. This has been a Republican dream for a very long time. So, so I do, yeah. But yeah, so that's the reason why I think they're trying to they want to take Greenland. I think also the the craziness of this whole thing is that Denmark and Europe and all these countries is that Trump was talking to someone at Davos and basically said to him, look, um, European nations will come to the rescue of America. Because remember, Trump said a couple of days ago, he said, European nations won't come to our rescue, but we come to the rescue of them, right? Which is complete BS because in Afghanistan, the Republican Party under George Bush invoked the Article 5, and then all the European NATO nations came to the defense of Trump and went into Afghanistan. Now, the only person who's been saying they wouldn't do that is Trump. Trump, since 2016, has been talking down NATO, has been saying he doesn't like NATO. So the reality is that America probably wouldn't come to the defense of Europe, but Europe would come to the defense of America. Every accusation is a confession, right? So they've done that in that sense to try to get that out of the way. I think Mark Carney, I really do think Mark Carney has made I think his speech and the fact that his speech was so strong has changed a lot of how Trump thinks. I think it really affected Trump because Trump, on one hand, I actually do think Trump loves Europe. I do think he loves Europe. I think he loves England. I think he loves the idea of England, the king, and all that sort of stuff. I think he really does love that stuff. So Trump thinking that he will become a pariah of get out of the word Europe, I think does affect him. I think he doesn't want to be seen as ostracized from European countries. So I think a lot of that stuff will affect him in the long term. I think it also shows that for all of Trump's bluster, he does have limits. So that's the other thing I would say is a positive, is that Trump is definitely an authoritarian. Trump is definitely doing awful things, but he's not willing to go like put it this way. I've said this before. I don't think Trump is Hitler, right? Trump is an authoritarian and Trump has dictated, but he's not Hitler. Hitler would not have changed his mind about Greenland. Hitler would have gone into Greenland, right? Hitler would not have, the tariffs wouldn't even been a thing. So we're not dealing with Hitler here. We're dealing with a very, very bad person who probably has some fascistic ideas about himself, but he's not someone who's probably going to go and invade all of Europe. And he doesn't want to see boots on the ground. He doesn't. So there are limitations to what Trump will do. I think they are positives in the sense of, I think that we're seeing that Trump can be fought back. The other thing is that a lot of these nations now, like Europe, Canada, and things like that, they're realizing that if you stand up to Trump, you can actually win, or you can at least neutralize Trump, right? And that's something that I think they never did before, right? So now, and the other thing is, Trump has said so many crazy things about Europe, and Trump has said so many crazy things about Canada, and Trump has said, like, put tariffs on and taken tariffs off and, threatened countries and all that sort of stuff, that after a while, you become immune to it. You know what I mean? Like a lot of countries are like, and also what's happening is a lot of countries are now looking, right? They're looking to do deals with China, or they're looking to, so they're bypassing the United States. And so the damage that Trump can do is less and less the more he ostracizes these countries because at the end of the day, hi Stephanie, good to see you. At the end of the day, Trump has been exposed a little bit as, So the emperor has no clothes. I think a lot of people are seeing now, and so I think going into the midterms, I actually feel quite confident that Trump is going to lose a lot of his power. Um, that power, I think, will not be lost in the United States, though. Trump is still going after people with ICE and all that stuff. So he's still going after his own country. But in terms of internationally, I think I think there's a very big limit to what Trump will do internationally. And I think we're seeing that at the moment because at the end of the day, even if you look at Venezuela, when he took out Maduro, he's very careful. He doesn't want boots on the ground and he doesn't want to see too many US soldiers killed, not because he's a nice guy, because he thinks it will make him look bad. So there is a limitation. And I think countries like Iran are looking at America and thinking to, for Trump to do regime change, he would need boots on the ground. You can extract one person, but the reason he didn't do regime change in Venezuela is because he would have needed a lot longer. It would have resulted in boots on the ground and it would have resulted in American soldiers dying. And so Iran, and other countries, I think, are looking at that and they're saying, well, I think Trump has a limitation to what he will do overseas. So I think Trump is. I think the other thing that the reason why Trump has gotten away with so much of what he has done with Europe and overseas countries is they were protecting Ukraine, right? They were protecting Ukraine because they wanted America to continue to help Ukraine. And so when a lot of times when Trump was attacking European nations, they didn't want to ostracize Trump because they didn't want him to pull out of Ukraine, right? And so there was a lot of that stuff as well. I think if the war in Ukraine wasn't happening and Russia hadn't invaded Ukraine, I think European leaders would have felt more free to tell Trump what they thought of him or to push back more against him. But because they were worried about Trump pulling out of Ukraine, they appeased him a lot more than they probably would have, right? So the more Trump pulls out of Europe, the more Trump pulls out of Ukraine, it's a bad thing, but he also loses his leverage. His leverage is that he's still sending equipment to Ukraine. His leverage is that he hasn't put massive tariffs yet on Europe. He's put a lot of tariffs, but not massive. So if he does too much, other countries are just going to go, well, we've got nothing to lose. So F you, Trump. Trump now has no leverage. Yeah. So Trump is in a bit of a predicament because if he overdoes it, then no one's going to listen to him. It's all that Trump's power is in his threat to do something, right? If he actually goes ahead and does it, then the threat is no longer there anymore and Trump loses his power. So again, I think we're seeing the end of Trump having this control over Europe. He's still going to have some control because America's still a very powerful country. He's still going to have control around the world and all that. But I think a lot of people, European nations, are seeing that there is a limitation to what Trump will do, right? I think there is a limitation to it. And I think a lot of people are starting to see that. And I think that's a good thing. In the United States, his polling is really, really bad at the moment. He's lost all the Latino votes. He's lost votes from young people, or the young people don't vote. Those people. He's lost swing voters, all those sort of. So because Trump has lost so much support within America, that makes it harder for Trump to do a lot of the things that he does. Right. So I do feel hope that the midterms will be good for the Democrats and will diminish what Trump is doing. I hope so. I really hope so. No one ever knows with Trump what he's going to do, but I do think there are limitations to what he's willing to do. I think the biggest thing with Trump at the moment is ICE and how he's using ICE is horrible in America. Basically, using it like his secret sort of police, and that could get really bad. That can get worse and worse as time goes by. But I think again, he's limited by the fact that he doesn't have a lot of broad support in America. A lot of dictators around the world, when they did the most awful things, they generally had a lot of support even when they were dictators, they had support, right? Trump has very little support. And I think something like 20% of people in the United States actually like him. So again, as long as Trump doesn't have support, I think I think he can be contained to some degree. The biggest threat is if Trump's popularity starts to go up again. That's when I feel Trump could start getting a lot more power, because a lot of his power came from having popularity within the Republican Party and some popularity amongst the electorate. Once that goes, I think he's less dangerous. He will lose a lot of his power. Come the midterms, I think we'll probably see more of a lame duck president. And then at the next election, I really do think, at the high end, thanks for joining me. Really appreciate that. Um, and I'm seeing that as well. I'm seeing that a lot of people like Gavin Newsom and, Josh Shapiro, in my opinion, I probably think it's between Gavin Newsom or Josh Shapiro, um, who's going to win the next Democratic um, at, at the primaries. I think they're probably my two favourites. Not in terms of who I want, but I do think Josh Shapiro and Gavin Newsom are probably the favourites to win. I don't know what you guys think. Like, let me know what you think in terms of who you think is going to be the favourite to win. Hi, Hassan. Thanks for joining. But yeah, I do actually think it's going to be Gavin Newsom um, or or Josh Shapiro. I think Josh Shapiro, because he's in Pennsylvania, he's got a lot of that area behind him. He's kind of like a centre left guy. I think he's got a lot of power. Gavin Newsom, because he's so outspoken against Trump. Obviously, the negative thing about Gavin Newsom um, is that he's a Californian, right? And there will be some people. Hi, Pat, good to see you. There will be some people, right, in the Midwest, in the mid states, who might not be um, that who want someone a Californian as a president of the United States because they might think that he's too left. Even though Gavin Newsom really is more of a centrist, he's more of a like a centre left Democrat. Um, I do think that, yeah. So I do think Josh Shapiro and probably Josh Shapiro and Gavin Newsom are probably the two favourites to win. Anyone else, maybe Gretchen Whitmer would probably be up there as well in terms of winning. I really admire J.D. Pritzker, but it will be Gavin Newsom. A lot of people won't accept Josh Shapiro as a Jewish president. Yeah, I mean, I think, I think, um, I do still think Josh Shapiro, because a lot of the, you'd be surprised, a lot of the Democratic, um, most Democrats would be, in my opinion, would be pro-Jewish, but they just wouldn't be pro-Israel. So I don't think him being Jewish would matter. Maybe the part about being more pro-Israel would matter. But I do think that I do think he's got that's a positive and a negative. Um, Mark Kelly, yeah, maybe Mark Kelly. Yeah. The thing is, I don't when I think about a possible, yeah, Dave, yeah. When I think about a possible leader for the Democrats, I don't think about just what I want. I think about what the electorate's going to win, because I always put into consideration that you've got to win the swing states. You've got to win Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, all those states. And so I don't know how Mark Kelly would go in that. I think he's good, but he is hated a lot by Republicans. And I'm just wondering how to swing voters. Possibly. I still think it's a shame. It's a shame that there isn't someone like Barack Obama You know what I mean? Like someone that, like an obvious person that everyone can just go, that's the person that we need to defeat Trump. I kind of feel like there are some good Kent Shapiro lost Pennsylvania in 20. Yeah, he did, but you could say he did, but you could say that that was more. You could say that that was more Kamala Harris than Josh Shapiro, because Josh Shapiro wasn't on the ballot. And so I don't know if I'd blame Shapiro for that. I'd more blame. Also, I think I'd more blame Joe Biden and Harris for that, because um, a lot of, and I wouldn't even blame them. I'd blame inflation. A lot of people were just voting based on cost of living and inflation and all that sort of stuff. So those in those areas, Pennsylvania was got they're very working class areas, and Trump does well with working class people. And Kamala Harris was kind of, this isn't true, but they tried to make her out to be more. Um, uh, Even though she's J Jake, in class, and Pete Buttigieg, yeah. Pete Buttigieg, I really, really do like Pete Buttigieg, Mary, I really do. I just worry that a gay person, an openly gay person, as a president, I don't know if America's ready for that. Yeah. And maybe if the electoral college wasn't a thing, that although, Pete Buttigieg Pete Buttigieg is a moderate Democrat, he's not super left, so that would certainly work in his favor. And also, a lot of people said that Barack Obama couldn't win because he was black, and he won twice. So, but he was also a center left. So, I'm not completely against Pete Buttigieg winning, but I do think it would be a factor in those swing states. I mean, maybe not. Yeah, but for me, I don't have anyone who really stands out to me, like Barack Obama did, or like for me, there's not like that one person. 57% of Americans surveyed said they will not support companies who discriminate against LGBT. But yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree, but would they vote? I mean, but would they vote for a gay person? I don't know. And also you have to realize that um, it's you can in America you can win the popular vote and still lose. So yeah, so it's just that I'm thinking about the people in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, and I just don't know. Wes Moore is very popular too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, because I think whoever I think Newsom Buttigieg would be a winning ticket. Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, I'm. See, the thing is, I think Newsom and Buttigieg would do well within the Democratic Party. I just don't know how the well they would do in the American electoral college system. Yeah, I could be wrong, but I just don't know. I just don't know. Yeah, there is definitely a risk with both of them. Newsom being California and Buttigieg being gay. They're definitely not two things that middle America would be on the top of their, like thing. The thing about Josh Shapiro is that he's from Pennsylvania. Hi, Sandra. Good to see you, Sandra. Thanks for joining. Um, the thing about Josh Shapiro is that he comes from that area, Pennsylvania. He he's very liked he's very liked as a governor. He's very liked as a governor there. Um, and a lot of people. So he did a lot of things that a lot of people liked. Newsom and Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota. Yeah, I do like Amy Klobuchar. Yeah, 2 nights in a row. I know. I know. Thanks, San. Yeah, I just thought I'd do. I'm not going to do a really long one tonight, but thanks, Sandra. Um, so Sandra, we're just talking about um, people who the Democrats can put forward at the next election. So yeah, therapy. That's right. That's right. Yeah, that could work too. Yeah. So I definitely think I like Gretchen Whitmer as well. because she's also from that sort of area. So I could see when I and this isn't who I like the best. I'm just talking about who I think has the best chance of winning in the electoral college system. I think it's probably Josh Shapiro and Gretchen Whitmer together. I think those two probably have the best chance of winning the election, only because I'm not thinking about who I want. I'm not thinking about who someone in California wants or New York wants, or on or people on or diehard Democrats want. I'm thinking about swing voters. Remember, you can't win an election in America. You can't win an election in America with just your base. You need swing voters and you need independents. So so when I think of swing voters and I think of independents, I think of Josh Shapiro and Gretchen Whitmer. And again, neither one of those to me are like, oh my God, they're amazing. Because unfortunately, Josh Shapiro is such an amazing speaker. And so yeah, he is. He is an amazing speaker. He Now he's not Barack Obama type speaker. He's not a Andy Bashir. Yeah, Andy Bashir. I like Andy Bashir as well. He's not Josh Shapiro. He's not a Barack Obama level. But I should actually also because like Barack Obama was very good for his time when everyone was watching TV. But these days, these days nobody is Barack. Yeah, exactly. But these days, someone like Barack Obama might not do as well as someone like Zoran Mandami. And I actually don't. By the way, I don't think Zoran Mandami would win a a federal election because I think he's too far left. I don't think he would win. But I think in terms of Barack is loved by everybody. Yeah, and I think Barack Obama had this magic of being a good speaker. Um, I actually could see it of being a good speaker, very charismatic. He was nice to look at. He was a good-looking guy. I think that always helps, charismatic. I think also he was a moderate. So if you had a black person running for if you had a black person running in America as for the president and he was like ultra left, I don't think he would have won the election. He won the election because he was a moderate and he was black. So he didn't scare off a lot of those voters, right? And I think the same thing with Josh Shapiro. A lot of times what the base wants and what America wants could be two different things. Um, and so I don't know, yeah. So I don't know. So for me, when I look at the American system and what you need to win, the problem with Josh Shapiro and Gretchen Whitmer is is are they loved enough in the Democratic Party? Good speaker, charismatic, and a decent human being. He had a dog. That's right. He did have a dog, Len. Yeah. Unlike Trump, who doesn't seem to like dogs, and every time he puts someone down, he always says he did that. He was like a dog. He always talks about people being bad and he compares them to a dog. So I don't think Trump is a big dog lover. Myself, yeah. But yeah, um, yeah. So there are more dangerous and bad things than dogs. So I don't know why Trump always brings up dogs as an example of bad things. Yeah, I mean, as an Australian, um, we've had like 3 or 4 shark attacks in Australia in the last couple of days, which is a lot of shark attacks in a short period of time. So Trump could always use sharks as an example instead of dogs. I'd be a lot more worried about sharks than I would be that. Yeah, a lot of sharks attack in a moment in Australia. So if you come into Australia, they don't like him either. Yeah, I don't think dogs like him as well. Definitely, I don't think they like him as well. Dog that is. Yeah, yeah, exactly, Len. They say all you need to know about him. I love animals, especially dogs. Yeah, I love dogs as well. Exactly. And look, Nibbles. Nibbles is on the couch. Is my dog Nibbles popping her head up to say hello? Hello, Nibbles. Everyone from America and Australia saying, yeah. Yeah. So that was quite emotional. That was quite emotional from Nibbles there. She popped her head up there for a little while. So yeah, so I think again, yeah, that's Nibbles. The half Malchi, half Malchi, half Maltese. So she can't be violent. She can't be violent. But yeah, so such a shame that that I don't really see really, when I look at America, I wish there was that one. Okay, you just earn bonus points as a Substack because of my dog. I know. And by the way, Len, just so you know, there have been people on my Substack live who the only question they will ask is "Where's Nibbles?" They will just say, "Where's Nibbles? Did you see Scott Jennings make Sleep live in HD?" And get, "No, I didn't see that. Ashley, what happened?" Nibbles is close to you, Joe. She's always hanging around you. Yeah, she is. She's my, she's a support dog who can also try to attack you. So you never know if she's your support dog or trying to attack you. You just never know with Nibbles. Um, I personally would never, as much as I love Nibbles, if someone had anxiety problems and things like that, I wouldn't recommend that Nibbles hang out with it. Like, she wouldn't bite you or anything like that. Like, but she she can turn on you. Like, she can be the most loving dog on the planet, and then just for no reason, she will just, she's your dog. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, she's very protective of her family. Um, she's very protective of family, but outside of her family, she's not, she loves, there's certain people she loves. She loves grandma, she loves grandma. She loves that, and she loves a couple of other people, but she's not a big fan of children. She doesn't like children. And I think it's because children can be a bit rough with you, and she's a very small dog. And so therefore she feels threatened by children. But she's never bitten anyone. Um, She's bitten me. They should follow the law, but let's not get our knickers in a twist. Scott Jennings, as it goes, she senses your energy exactly. And speaking of Nibbles lovers, Kimmy Wynn has just entered the chat. Kimmy, every dog loves grandma. Grandma spoils them. Yeah, Kimmy. Hi, Joe, and just for you, Kimmy, Nibbles, Nibbles. Say hello to Kimmy. There you go. And that was for you, just for you, Kimmy. I thought you needed that today. Um, so yeah, hey Kimmy, yeah, yeah. So hi Nicole, thanks for joining again. Thank you. Hey, yeah, cute, yeah. Just for you, Kimmy. I know because Kimmy sometimes Kimmy won't say anything. Hi. Sometimes Kimmy won't say anything, and then out of the blue, she would just say, "How's Nibbles?" So I have a feeling that Kimmy might just be here for Nibbles and not for me, which is hurtful, which is a little bit hurtful. But yeah. So going back to see, she agrees. Lots of love to Nibbles. But yeah, and I think going back to who I think could possibly, because we're talking about Kimmy, who would be the best candidate to beat. Yeah, thanks, Mary. Oh, has now joined the chat. And why dot? Why? I want to know why dot. That's like, like I want to know what the thing is behind that. I wonder if I'll ever find out. Um, but yeah, I just think I'm yes, it's amazing. But I just wonder, like, the Lucid Hex. Actually, Ashley, why the Lucid Hex? I want to know why the Lucid Hex. I want to know that as well. Um, but and Ashley, one day, I'm not saying today, but Ashley, one day you actually have to join me and in the chat, like not just in the chat, but we have to actually like have a proper conversation. I especially enjoy Lev Parnes pawning Scott G's. He may never have been invited back. Yeah, yeah. I didn't see that. I didn't see that. Um, but yeah, we were talking about, like, you know, who the best candidate is to beat probably JD Vance in the next election, and Lucid Hex. Now, a moment of brutal clarity when the spell breaks. when you see power lies and system exactly as they are and refuse to stay quiet. Part awakening, part defiance. Once, right. That's pretty cool. I like that. I like that, Ashley. That's really cool. Okay. I like that. Um, excellent. Hi, Carol. Hi, Amanda. Thank you for joining. We're just brainstorming ideas about who the best candidate, the Democratic candidate, um, would be to beat whoever runs as the next Republican candidate at the next election. In my opinion, I think it's Josh Shapiro and Gretchen Whitmer together. Um, Hi, Amanda. Good to see you. A lot of people think Mark Kelly, who will be JD Dunce in his sofa in a few. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Um, so I do think it will be JD Vance. I think that's probably who's going to be the person to win. Um, I also think Josh Shapiro would do well against JD Vance. I think he has a good personality. Um, yeah, I think he does have a good personality to beat him. He's so bad. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He is. Now, the only thing JD Vance did well in 2024 was um was the debate with Tim Walz. He actually did he actually did better in that debate than I actually thought he would have. I always like to try and be a little bit honest about stuff. And I would say that the only thing he did well was his debate. Guys, sorry, we don't even get to pick primaries. Yeah, that's right. We don't. Yeah. We'll definitely win with JD Vance as front runner. Yeah. I hope so. I hope so. I hope so. I don't want us to be Sandra, I don't want us to be complacent like we were with Trump in 2016. Um, Hi, Izzy. Hi. Thanks for joining. Thanks so much for joining. Um, I think Trump will hand the throne to Don Jr. Yeah. I don't know. I think Don Jr. will probably maybe run. Um, but I don't think Trump's going to run because he's too old. But I do think it depends on how how popular Trump is between now and the next elections. Because if he becomes very, very unpopular, then who he endorses might not be a good thing, right? But if he's still somewhat popular, oh boy, Mary, another president with the attention span. Yeah, another. If he does endorse someone like his son, Donald Trump Jr., um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. See, Trump's power is his popularity. Trump's power is his popularity within the MAGA movement, if he loses that power, um, I think Trump loses a lot of the MAGA power. I I'd like to see MAGA completely demolished at the next election, and then go back to like a normal Republican Party, like the old school Republican Party. Um, yeah, Republican Party. I think I'd like to see that. And I think the only way to beat Trump, the way to beat the Republicans is basically through the economy. I think the economy is what's going to beat him. Unfortunately, I think it's the only thing that's going to beat Trump is the economy, because a lot of people don't seem to care outside of the Democratic Party. Sandra, JD would not be able to outrun the awful policies and a terrible regime. It would hold it. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, yeah. And the thing is, Sandra, is that JD Vance has tied himself so closely to Trump that it's going to be hard for him to separate himself. As where if another Republican comes in who is not as closely tied to Trump, he could run as not anti-Trump, but as like someone who's not tied to all the policies. Because remember when Kamala Harris was running for the election in 2024, she was asked in an interview, what would you do different to Joe Biden? And she wouldn't answer the question. She basically said, I would do everything the same. Now, in my opinion, I don't think Joe Biden did anything that bad. But if you're going to run for elections and you're trying to get you're trying to win over voters who don't like Joe Biden, you've got to separate yourself from the person before, right? Because otherwise you're just going to end up with the same voters and you're not going to pick up any new voters. So that was a mistake by Kamala Harris. Now, she did it because she didn't want to throw Joe Biden under the bus and she didn't want to be, but at the end of the day, you 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 got to throw the person under the bus. It's not like you're saying the ICE murders have angered the electorate and who abortions ICE. Yeah, exactly. That was a terrible answer, and she got persecuted. Yeah, it was a terrible answer. But here's the thing: at the moment, JD Vance is looking like he's doing the same thing. Every time they ask JD Vance about something, he says, "I agree with Trump. I agree with Trump about Greenland. I agree with Trump about ICE. I agree with Trump about the economy is not doing bad." So JD Vance is, I think, to some degree, destroying his chances. If JD Vance was smart, he'd either stay quiet or slightly go back against it. Like you don't obviously he's not going to come out and say Trump is all. You can't do that because you're the vice president. But you could push back a little bit, right? Because then when it comes to the election, he could say, "Hey, I didn't agree with Trump on this, and I didn't agree with Trump on that," and then he can create his own lane. But at the moment, JD Vance is seen as very weak. JD Vance is seen as like a sycophant of Trump, like he can't think for himself. And I think that's going to come back to bite him at the next election. Um, so I think it bit Kamala Harris, and and Joe Biden didn't do anywhere near as bad things as Donald Trump has done. So I think he's making he's a chameleon, and people will start to see exactly he's an equally honourable option. He's weak. I don't think JD will be running. I think it'll be too busy with the trials and defend it. Yeah, yeah. I hope so, but I don't know. I think at the moment JD's probably the biggest chance of winning. Um, I do think that because I also think the base like JD Vance more than anyone else. They don't love JD Vance, but they like him more than anyone else. And the reason for that is because he says everything. The reason they like JD Vance better than a lot of other people is because he never fights back against Trump, right? They don't like anybody who says even the slightest bit of criticism about Trump, right? And so in the Republican Party, if you criticize Trump 0.5% of the time, you're considered a never Trumper. You like forget yeah, exactly, a never Trumper, right? You could like even like Liz Cheney, right? Before she went hardcore against Trump, right? She voted with Trump, I think 93% of the time during like the first time he was in. She was not saying that many bad things against him, and because she came out once or twice, she became a never Trumper, right? So it doesn't take much to become a never Trumper, right? It's just the slight one bad comment against Trump, and their base will completely go against you. So because of that, um, JD Vance, um, JD Vance is I think in a bit of trouble because JD Vance might pick up the MAGA vote, the primaries, because at the end of the day, you have to win the primaries. But if he, in terms of the electorate, when he has to win over swing voters and he has to win over independents and young people and Latinos, I think he's going to struggle. I really do think he's going to struggle to win that vote. And I think, in my opinion, I think Josh Shapiro is probably going to be the next president of the United States. I've said it here now. I've said it. It's my prediction. Josh Shapiro, the president of the United States in 2028. Okay, that's that. Yeah, 100%. But I think he's got the highest chance of winning. The only thing about Josh Shapiro is I don't know how popular he is within the Democratic base. I agree he will struggle. Josh Shapiro with the progressive VP will do well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I don't know how progressive Gretchen Whitmer is, but she's progressive enough to um uh to win over some of the votes. What Josh Shapiro won't do. Do you remember when Joe Biden said my vice president is going to be a black woman? And I was like, oh, Joe, do not say that. Now, when he said that, he wasn't saying that to be mean, and he wasn't saying that because he was trying to throw Kamala Harris under the bus. He was saying that because he's an old man who was trying to be progressive, but he doesn't really understand the whole thing, right? He doesn't really understand it. So when he said that, he basically turned Kamala Harris into like a DEI candidate by saying it's right. All he should have said was I am going to hire, I am going to appoint the best person to be the vice president, and left it at that. Right? Don't add the color, don't add the gender, because for the next 4 years, Kamala Harris was called the DEI candidate because of what Joe Biden said. We have to, yeah, you we don't have to say that stuff. That's a democratic problem, right? And it's a democratic problem. And the thing about Josh Shapiro is he would 100% know that, right? He's not going to say, if he's thinking Gretchen Whitmer, he's not going to say, I'm going to hire a female, right? Because that's the worst thing you can say. You say, yeah, keep it in your head. Exactly. You say, right, here's the linchpin issues, the Trump Epstein files, full release. Yeah. You say, um, I'm going to hire the best. And that best could be male, female, white, black, brown, doesn't matter. I'm going to hire the best. And then it's Gretchen Whitmer. Great. Okay. So then the Republicans can't spend the next 4 years going, well, she was only hired because she was a woman. I mean, Josh Shapiro basically said, so it's not the best. So again, Democrats have to do better with messaging. They have to do better with strategy, right? And also it gives DEI a bad name because DEI is not really about that. But when people like Joe Biden say it that way, it confuses people about what DEI is, right? Because in a sense, you shouldn't, again, so again, I think Democrats need to do better. They need to hire. Yeah, sorry, yeah. Well, they just need to do. It's just like you need to stop acting like Democrats need to stop campaigning towards their most loved audience. They do. By the way, they do this in Australia as well. Like the Australians on here will know that a couple of years ago we had a referendum um, to for something, right? It was basically, it's very confusing. What it was a vote. So basically, people voted to have something come in. And I won't go into a lot of detail about it, but I just want to give you a quick example because it's an example of a centre left wing party only campaigning to its own side and not to the middle or to other sides. I want to give you it because it's very important, because I think this is why Democrats lose, right? And centre left governments have been losing around the world. The centre left government brought in a vote to say that Indigenous people, so we have Indigenous people in Australia, Aussies have a better electoral system. Yeah. They wanted to bring in a system in Australia where Indigenous people would have a thing called The Voice. It was called The Voice. And it would be a panel of Indigenous people who could advise the government, right, on Aboriginal issues, right? And so you were voting to have a panel of Aboriginal people advise the government on issues. That's what it was about. And the whole of Australia had to say yes or no. Now, what happened is that the way the centre-left government campaigned is that it was only campaigning towards the people on the left, and the right-wing government said things like, well, why do Aboriginal people get a special voice in Parliament, but Greek people don't, but Indian people don't, and Italian people don't, and people from Africa people don't, right? So then it looked like they were given preferential treatment to one particular group. And on the left, they used examples of corporations that were for a lot of corporations were for the yes vote, right? Which is a good thing. I was for the yes vote. But so the left wing party was using, oh look, Qantas does want this, big shopping centres want this. So they were using corporate people who wanted this, right? On the right hand side, who wanted no, they used individual people who were Aboriginal people, very small percentage, but they used actual Aboriginal people on the ground and said, well, the corporations want yes, but the average Aboriginal doesn't want to. That's a lie. But the example I'm giving to you is we need to stop. Um, we need to start campaigning towards working class people, right, and people in the middle, and not just campaigning towards woke people on the left or people who think like you or, who are all about the LGBT. I'm for the LGBT community, but they want people want to vote not on identity politics, not on not on what color someone is, not on, someone saying I don't like white people, right? And not on any of that. People want to vote on, oh, what are you going to do for my standard of living, right? What are you going to do to make rents more affordable? What are you going to do to make my young people be able to afford to buy a home? What are you going to do about cost of living? What are you going to do? How come insurance keeps going up? How come I can't afford to send my kids to break? If you talk about that, you will definitely win an election. And this happens all around the world where some left wing parties became more interested in culture wars or identity politics at the expense of that. And what happened? They lost the working class people. And once they lost the working class people, you lose elections. And in America, where are the working class people? Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, right? You got more votes in California, you got more votes in New York, but you lost votes where it matters, right? So you've got to be smart about. And here's the other thing: if you're someone who is if you're someone who cares about the LGBT community and you're someone who cares about black people, brown people, racism and all that, the best way to combat that is to not use that as a reason to vote for you. You use policies. So if you bring in if you bring in like Zora Mandami, he brought in childcare, free childcare. Who does that help the most? Well, it's going to help poor people the most, and more people that are black are poor than white people. So without actually saying it, you're actually helping people that you want to help. The problem is that once you only identify one particular group that you want to help, the other groups are going to feel left out. And if you're a political party, you want to win every group: whites, blacks, browns. Sorry to have to hold, but really great discussion. That's all. Thanks, Nicole. His transition team was amazing. Yeah, Zoran Mandami to me will never win a federal election because he's too far left. But his ideas or how he talks, 100% would win an election. And Josh Shapiro does talk like that a lot more. He will often talk about things like, there was an example, I can't remember, there was like a bridge. People in America will know this. There was a bridge in Pennsylvania that collapsed. I remember this. A boat went into a bridge and it collapsed. Please someone tell me, I can't remember what it was. Anyway, they needed to get that bridge up really fast, right? So what he did is he bypassed a lot of stuff that usually would have stopped buildings from being built quickly. And he said, "What? I was at Maryland, yeah." And he said, we need to bypass Baltimore. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he said we need to bypass all of that stuff, and they built a bridge because it was crucial. That bridge was crucial, and they built that bridge in really, really fast times, right? And so a lot of people respected him for that. because he got something done by getting rid of red tape, right? A lot of the red tape. And that sort of thing, I think, could help him win an election. Because you know what he could say? Hi, Marnie, good to see you. At the moment in America, there's a real shortage of homes. And he could say, look, I built a bridge and I built this sort of stuff in record speed, got rid of red tape, got rid of this, and I did it, right? So he could apply building that bridge to building homes, right? And I think a campaign of building homes, homes, homes is a great way to get working class people back to the Democratic Party. And someone like Josh Shapiro, who governs and has governed well, and a lot of their people got to work and get to work exactly, Len. Who works building homes? Tradesmen, plumbers, electricians, right? Builders. They're part of the working clubs, right? Who more homes? Less prices. Who wants to buy homes? Young people, right? So now you get working class people voting for you. You get young people who want more supply of home voting for you, right? The bridge was in my town, Bodwell. Yes, Westmore is the truth. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think the Dems should not use the term working class people. It sounds elitist. Yeah, I don't think it's. Look, I I mean, Republicans use working class as well, and it doesn't seem to affect them as well. You don't have to say, look, I agree. You don't have to say working class, but I do have to say, like I think you can bring in policies. You don't have to say working class, but you can bring in policies that helps them. And I think like as I look in Australia, the centre left government always can't say tradespeople, mums, dad. Yeah, exactly. Tradespeople, yeah, mums, dads, yeah, daily folk, yeah. So in Australia, the centre left government is very much towards the trade industry. So what they did is the centre left government brought in all these policies for, we call them tradies in Australia. So we call them tradies, like plumbers, electricians. And obviously, a lot of young men go into the trades. Women do as well, but it's mostly men, right? And so the way our centre left government got a lot of people who will generally vote for more conservative people these days, because a lot of young guys these days tend to vote more conservative. But the way they got them back in is not through the culture wars, because young people hate the culture wars, right? Especially young guys. Young guys hate the culture wars, right? So the way they got him back in is through economics. So they brought in all these things. So if you wanted to become a tradesman, you could like they would give you government grants to become a tradesperson. They would make it cheaper for you to buy tools, like tools that you need for plumbing. So they brought in all these things that are good for tradespeople, right? And hi, Tamara, good to see you again. The bathroom guy, thanks for joining. Yeah. Um, and so all these policies were directed at tradespeople, right? And also, what our centre left Prime Minister Albanese did is he went on a lot of podcasts in Australia, and a lot of those podcasts were blokey, like blokey. I don't know if do you use the word blokey. Hi, Donna. A blokey podcast is where a lot of guys. It's like a sports podcast, or it's a greetings everyone, peace and man. Hello, bathroom guy, and all that stuff. So a lot of that so he really did go for the sort of like the guys tradies. He went on a lot of sports show. Now it helps the fact that our prime minister loves a sport he called rugby league, so he's a big fan of it, right? So, but on the other hand, he also went to nurses, and he opened up things for daycare centres, nursing homes, all that sort of stuff. So he did across the board for different, but he never said, I'm doing this for men. He never said, I'm doing this for women. He never said, I'm doing this for black people or white people. He would just put the policy forward, and the policy itself would do, yeah, Doug Ford be campaigning on $2 bills. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. There is so much you can do. Get rid of the culture wars, right? Get rid of the culture wars. It's gonna do bad things for you. Now, that doesn't mean that that you don't say you're against gay people and stuff like that. It's just that that's not your main focus. Your main focus is to make sure that people's economic life is better. That's your main focus. And that's what American people want their leaders to concentrate on. That's what they want them to concentrate on. While Democrats were talking about Trump being an authoritarian, right? The American population in 2024 was thinking about what their rents were, right? Their cost of living. And that's the reason why Trump won the election. A lot of people, so they did a lot of surveys. A lot of people after Trump won the election said the Democrats were too focused on Trump being authoritarian and too focused on culture wars. Now, I think focusing on Trump being authoritarian is a valid point because he is an authoritarian, right? So I agree with that. I don't think he should pretend like he's not an authoritarian. But when you go for an election, you can't just tell people what not to vote against. You've got to give people a reason to vote for you as well. And the fact of the matter is, when you have a large electorate, right? When you have a large, when you have a large, we're here for working people and working families. We know you're going to get sick. We know you're going to get older. You should not go bankrupt. Healthcare, there's a mess. Yeah, exactly. And look, lower voter participation. Yeah, a lot of people like healthcare was basically not talked about. I think Democrats made some mistakes. I think I think pivoting to Liz Cheney and even Dick Cheney when he was alive, I think that was a bad mistake because it basically, I know what they were trying to do. They were trying to pull votes away from Republicans, but but Republicans are diehard. Republicans are diehard. Like every time they poll Republicans, Trump is like 91, 92%. You're not going to get enough people from the Republican side. So I know a lot of people who who were voters for Trump, and then they saw Kamala Harris hanging out with Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney, and they're like, "That's not the party that I want to represent." A lot of people in the Democratic Party don't want to be seen with the Dick Cheney who went into Iraq. That's not the party they want the Democratic Party to be. So I think, in my opinion, it was a bad strategical mark. You can say, "Thank you, Liz. I accept your endorsement. I also think Trump is an authoritarian." Liz thinks it, but then leave it at that. Don't go and do a tour, right? Don't go and do a tour with Liz Cheney. I think that was a bad mistake, right? Because how did that? So a lot of people was like, wait a second, the Democrats are now the party of Liz Cheney, and now the Trump administration is talking about, well, we're against war, we're against this. And that. Now, we all know that's all a lie. He's not against war and all that stuff. But for an electorate that's not listening, that's going to come across as the Democrats are the party of the establishment, and are close, yeah. And the right wing and the Republicans are the party against war and all that sort of stuff. I think it was a tactical mistake. I know this is not about politics, but I miss Olivia Newton-John. She was awesome. We have big problems in the US. I wish things were better, but Trump has severe dementia. Yeah, yeah. Olivia Newton-John, it was a fantastic Australian. I really liked Olivia Newton-John as well. She unfortunately died of breast cancer, but yeah, she was fantastic. I loved her in Greece. She was very good in Greece. She was very popular in Australia. Isn't it amazing that some of Australia's biggest personalities is Steve Irwin, who's like this really ochre Australian who's like all about animals and spiders and all that. And on the other hand, you have Olivia Newton-John, who's like into like singing and musicals and theatre, like two extreme parts of like characters like Steve Irwin, Olivia Newton-John. But really, that kind of represents a lot of Australia because most people in Australia are not like Steve Irwin yet. Most people in Australia live in cities. Most people in Australia are probably more cosmopolitan. Hugh Jackman, both in one package. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Steve Irwin. I actually, I'll just quickly go into this. Um, Steve Irwin owned a zoo. Well, Steve Irwin's dad owned a zoo in Australia called Australia Zoo, and Australia Zoo is about an hour and a half where I live in Brisbane, so you can drive there. Like sometimes you can get there like in an hour. And Steve Irwin ran that zoo after his dad died. And when Steve Irwin died, it's now been run by his wife and his children, Bindi Irwin and obviously Robert Irwin as well. They now run the zoo. And so over the Christmas break, we went up there, we drove up there and we went to Australia Zoo. So if you ever get to Australia, go to Australia Zoo. It's about an hour north of Brisbane and it's a really good zoo. They even have white rhinos which I think are going extinct there as well. It's in a rural area, so it's a very, very big zoo. And Robert Irwin is often there with the crocodiles. So they will have a show 2 times a day, and Robert Irwin will be feeding the crocodiles. So you can see Robert Irwin there. He's not there all the time because sometimes he's off in America winning dancing competitions. I thought that they were extinct. No, I think there's still a couple of white rhinos in captivity. I think they're extinct in the wild, but there's some in captivity. Um, so beautiful, beautiful family, the Irwin family, and so there's a lot of. I think Australia's done pretty good with. It's on my bucket list to go to Australia Zoo. Yeah, definitely, Marnie. You should do it. Hi, Bruce. Good to see you. You will love Australia Zoo, because a lot of our other zoos in Australia, um, they're nice zoos, but because they're in the cities, they're quite small. Because Australia Zoo has a lot more room because it's in a more rural area, you get to see you get to see a bigger zoo. The animals have a lot more room, and it's like honestly, it feels like you're going through Jurassic Park. It's amazing. Yeah, so highly recommend it. And but yeah. Anyway, Steve Irwin, um, Steve Irwin. I'm just wondering if Robert Irwin could become Prime Minister of Australia. I don't know. It's possible. But yeah, so again, I'd like to see countries around. See, my thing is, I want to see centre left governments all around the world, in America, Australia, a place where no one dared to go. They called Australia Zoo to the tune of Xanadu. Yeah, I know, but yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Good one, Len. Yeah, but I know um, music in Australia. I don't. Has anyone ever heard of Cold Chisel? I bet you probably haven't heard of Cold Chisel. I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to think of Cold Chisel in Australia. Cold Chisel's a really big band in Australia. Was a really big band. I don't know. It's running through all your hairs right now. You're welcome. Thanks, Len. We appreciate that. I don't know. I'm trying to think what the biggest musical. In Excess was another. I don't know if In Excess was big in America or not. Um, Peter Allen, obviously, Peter Allen was really big into musicals. I Still Call Australia Home. He did that one as well. I've been to cities like New York and Rio and old London town. He did that one. And by the way, that song that Peter Allen did about Australia, they if you're on a Qantas plane, In Excess, In Excess was a great band. Michael Hutchins. Um, if you're on a Qantas plane, and you're coming into Australia in Qantas, they will start playing that Peter Allen song. So right there you can see the Sydney Opera House, which is on my TV there. And as you go, if you're coming into Sydney and you're coming over the Opera House on the plane, they'll play that song. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, In Excess. I loved In Excess. I was a massive In Excess. Another one was Cold Chisel from the 90s. Silverchair was another big band, but they were more like a grunge band. They were like Pearl Jam, all that sort of stuff. They were pretty big in Australia as well. Um, but yeah, like we had a couple of big bands in Australia, not as big as obviously like the UK or anything like that. AC/DC was a pretty big AC/DC was a really big band, I think, in America as well. Was that? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was pretty big in America. But yeah, yeah, we've had our share. Obviously, everyone knows what a koala is. Kangaroos are pretty famous. So our animals are pretty famous. We got pretty famous animals, which I think is really important. But yeah, so I listened to Olivia when she did country before her pop years. Yeah, yeah, that's right. She did do a lot of that stuff. She did a lot of country. Yeah. Did you guys like Xena? I don't know. What is Xena? No, I don't know that one. AC/DC is big all over the world. Yeah. Yeah, AC/DC was big all over the world. A lot of people think they're from England for some reason. Yes, AC/DC is from Australia. Yeah, yeah. A lot of people think they're from England, but they're actually Aussies. Crowded House. Crowded House is another big one. I think they're actually New Zealand. On that one there. Xanadu. Oh, well, yeah, I like Xanadu. Yeah, yeah, I did. Yeah. So there's a lot of that stuff as well. We had Kylie Minogue. She was more like a pop singer. She was quite big in Australia. She tried to make it in America, but I don't think she actually ever made it in America. It's Kiwis. That's right. It's weird. You know what's weird that you probably don't have. I don't know if you have that in America. Is we have bands in Australia that are really, really big in Australia, and yet overseas no one knows who they are. Like, that must be weird. Like, imagine being a band and you're like, and you're in Australia and you anywhere you go, people ask for your autograph and you're famous everywhere you go. And then you go to America and nobody knows who you are. Right? Yeah, Kiwis are like Canadians, we love them here. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Men at Work. Yes, Men at Work are very Australian band. Marnie, absolutely. Yeah. I come from the land. Yeah, I come from the land of down under, where people rose and make thunder. That's an Australian song. That's about. So they wrote that song. The Honourable Jack Smith is testifying in Congress. Oh, I love Jack Smith. Jack Smith is my favorite. One of my favorite American characters. Like being a Canadian celebrity. Exactly. Yeah, I bet you that is like being Canadian. But the thing is, the thing is, I think Canada experiences that, Australia experiences that, the UK, Europe, where you have famous people within their country. But I don't know if there's famous people who are only famous in America and not famous overseas. I think everyone who's famous in America is famous overseas, except maybe for sports stars. I would say sports stars would be the exception because most people in Australia have no idea of baseball players. Baseball is not played in every country around the world. So you could be a famous baseball player in America and not be famous in Australia. But outside of sports, I think it would be rare to have I love Overkill from Men at Work. One of my favorite. Yeah, yeah, that's a great song as well. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, there is. Australia did pretty well with music. More so in the 80s or 90s, not so much. I don't think we have as many bigger stars now than we did back then. But yeah, sometimes what happens in Australia is they can be big in Australia and they'll also be big in the UK, but they won't be big in America. So they'll make it here, the UK, maybe Europe, but they don't make it to Australia. Yeah. And everyone obviously wants to be big in America because it's obviously the biggest audience is in the United States, that sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, guys, I think I'm gonna head off now. I've got something to do, but thank you so much for joining. I'll do a bit of a quicker one today because I did one yesterday. Uh, but thank you for joining, everyone. Really appreciate it. I will talk to you guys again soon sometime. What is your favorite dish in Australia? Um, Favorite dish in Australia before I go. Let me think. Favorite dish in Australia. Look, I got to say, thanks, Len. Thanks, guys. My favorite dish in Australia. We don't really. I think like America. Look, I actually prefer, to be honest, my favorite food. Thanks, Car. My favorite food is not food that Australian food is like. I don't know. Like, there's no real Australian food, to be honest with you. Like, Australian food is like American food. Like, you could, thank you, Joe. Peace of matter. Thank you. Um, um, yeah. And I think Australian food is like food from America. Like, it's not really American food. Like, some of it might be, but not a lot. So, my favorite food is Italian. My favorite food is Thai and Indian. So, I prefer those type of foods, than that. So I like those are my favorite types of food. American, British fusion. Yeah, exactly. So I like food that's more from other countries than my country. Outback Restaurant in America. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm more into. I love Japanese. I love Japanese food as well. I visited Japan for a couple of weeks and I went crazy on Japanese food. I love Japanese food. So I would say my favorite food is Australian food is like a meat pie. You know, meat pie, butter chicken, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like butter chicken, like yeah. So I like international food. I like food from other countries. Thai and Japanese, yeah, exactly. So we have great Thai place called Sarwan in Omaha. Oh wow, okay, yeah, that's cool. Sushi, kangaroo. Levy, I'm not going to eat a kangaroo. A kangaroo is part of our national. The next thing you're going to say, koala? No, well, that's not actually true because you can actually eat kangaroo, and a lot of people do eat kangaroo, and it's considered very lean meat. But I've never ate kangaroo. I don't know. I can't eat kangaroos. It feels like you're eating Australia. Sushi is another favorite. Yeah, sushi. I love sushi as well. Sushi is really nice. It's really cool. But Australia, like America, is very multicultural. If you go down the street of a main street, it will be no koalas here. It would be like if you go down, yeah, they are too many. So you go down the street of Australia, it's every single country's food, every single country type of food. And have you heard of Betty Who 360 Lash Models Music? No, I haven't, Kimmy. I haven't heard of that. Have you heard of Betty Who 360? No, I haven't that one yet. Um, but yeah, anyway, that's yeah. I do love international food, but yeah, I'm not really big on a food. But thanks, guys. Thank you so much. Great conversation. Thanks for talking. Hopefully, I'll talk to you again soon. See you guys. Bye. Oh, Kimmy, I'll look that up, Kimmy. I'll talk to you next time. Yeah, quickly, just Nibbles. There you go. Say goodbye, Nibbles. 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 Say goodbye. There you go. Oh, thanks, Marty. Good night from the East Coast. You say, Joe, enjoy your life. Yeah, there you go. Goodbye.